Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you spend any time on my videos, you probably know that I own a 2013 Can-Am Spyder. It's currently sitting underneath the cover and snow tubes over my left shoulder. What you don't know is I recently bought that. It's a 2021 Can-Am Spyder. And I've only ridden it once, frankly, to take it out of the garage of the person's house where I bought it and put it onto a trailer because it's Minnesota in February and there's snow on the ground. But that doesn't mean that I can't start playing with it and can't start modifying it. But that's going to run into a few little challenges. What I'd like to do is add some accessory lighting to the sides of this to make it a little more visible, add some extra signals, that kind of thing. But there's a change that happened in 2019 on the Spyder that we have to deal with. So what we're going to do today is install a wiring harness adapter for this bike to allow us to easily plug in accessory lighting in the future. So as I mentioned a moment ago, this is my 2021 Can-Am Spyder F3T. And in 2015 to 2018, there were a few places where you could get into the wiring to add accessory lighting to these, largely related to a turn signal that was right here in the mirror housing. But as you can see, that doesn't exist anymore. And because of that, neither does the plug-in position that we used to be able to use. So the front signals for this bike now exist right down there in the fender. It's a dual color light, so it's got the white running light and then the signal as well. And there's a wire there that we're going to need to borrow, but obviously that's a problem because that's not on the bike. So what we have is an accessory kit that I bought from TricLED that allows us to take the wire that goes to this light and split it, and then run an extension back down and into the body of the bike, which should end up roughly about there, which we can use for the accessory lighting that we're going to add later. So this is what you get with the TricLED wiring harness. You can see this is the 1 to 2 Fender power harness for Spyders and Rikers. And what this comes with are the pieces we need for this project, and then frankly, some additional components that we're not going to use, and 0 instructions. So I'm going to walk you through the process here, but first let's talk about what we have. This wire is pretty self-explanatory. This is our extension wire that's going to bring our power from the fender back up into the bike. So we do need this. Looking at the other wires that we have here, the only piece we need for this project is going to be this 1 to 2 splitter. So we're going to take those two and set this aside. Essentially, this is going to go in the fender. So this will go into the cable coming off of the bike. One of these will go into the fender light. The other will plug into the extension and then bring that signal back up into the bike. These other two pieces that you have are for other accessories that they sell. This is a 2-color signal input, if you will, that allows you to switch between white and yellow lights if you're using any of those types of kind of white running lights that switch to yellow when the signal is on. And this is I believe a splitter that allows you to switch into some of their body LEDs. So it takes the signal coming off the bike and it breaks it into both polarities of the wires that go to those LED lights. None of those we're going to use for now. So those we're going to set aside. We might use those at a later date. We're just going to be dealing with these. So for this project, we're going to start at the fender and work our way into the bike, kind of running the cable as we go. So I've put the handles all the way to the side so that we can kind of see this a little bit easier. But looking down inside the fender, there are 4 bolts that we're going to have to take off to release the fender from the bike. They are 13 millimeter, and there's 2 on this support right here, and then 2 that you can just kind of see on the back as well, there and there. So those 4 are going to have to be removed. Now, because there's wiring and everything that runs through this, what we're going to do is throw a towel over the A-arm here so we can pull those off and just take this fender, lift it up, and set it kind of on its side on the A-arm. That'll give us access to the wires so we can do what we need to do without having to worry about disconnecting that and everything else. All 4 bolts are removed, and I've got my fender laid back on a little piece of material to protect the A-arm. And what you can see, if we come in here a little bit, is this front support has our wire that runs up and into here for this plug, so I can get in. and there's a little screw right here. It's an 8mm screw, and that's gonna pull this black panel off, and that'll give us access to the wire underneath that's feeding this light. So we're gonna pull that screw out and pull that panel down, and then we should be able to get access to the light plug from behind. So here's that plastic panel, and you can see there's a little clip on the back that hooks onto the wire, hooks onto the support rather, and just kind of pinches on that so you can get a little spot for the wire to run through it. And then that screw just ran right up through this hole. So once you've got the screw out, it just kind of like pops down and pulls off. Now that that's out of the way, if you look in here, you can see the wire, and there's a plug that goes into the back of the light right here. Essentially what we're gonna do is pull that plug out, and then we will grab our splitter. So here we've got the wire coming out of the bike now, plugged into the splitter. One of these two plugs is going to go back into the light. The other one will plug into our extension cable, which we're then going to run right down the same path as the previous wire. So right back down this support, we're actually gonna zip tie it to this existing wire, and we'll let that track us all the way back into the bike. So I'm gonna get my splitter plugged into the light here. I'll get the other side hooked in, and then we'll get it all zip tied up and put it back together. It's kind of boring to watch on film, so I'll just do that. And then I'll check back in when we do the next step of running that light wire up into this piece of the bike. Fender is reattached, and you can see the wire trailing down here. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna follow this wiring harness that exists. So we're just gonna zip tie it to this wire, follow it down along under the A-arm, all the way across. So I left my cable tie ends on just so I can show you the path here. But essentially what I've done is I've run this wire down along this wire that exists. So under the A-arm here, kind of zip tying it as I went. And where that leaves the end of it, you can see, is right here. And I've actually plugged it into an accessory that we'll talk about in a later video. I wish this cable was a little bit longer. I would have liked to have tucked it up into the body a little bit more, but for my purposes, this is going to work just fine. And yes, I will be shrink wrapping that end, but the cable runs down along the A-arm, underneath, and then comes up behind this panel and cuts across. So it follows all of the existing wiring until it gets to here. And then from this point, I can split it out and use it inside the bike. And that's all there really is to it. Installation on the other side is going to be exactly the same. You don't actually have to take apart any of the bike to do this. Typically, you can run this wire and either wrap it up inside the fender and tape it off, or kind of bring it up inside the body. My only real complaints on the product is I wish the extension that goes into the bike was a bit longer. I think they intended this to power lights that were going onto the A-arm or lights that would be going on a floorboard, and that's just fine. But if you're going up into the body, it is a little bit short for that purpose. It ended up kind of right down here, and I would have preferred it up here. Not a massive deal. And as you can see with the cables they give you with this, it worked. So I was able to connect everything even without using the extension cable that they give you. So this is all just direct run, and it should be pretty nice. And if I do branch that off again for a headlight update that I have coming, that'll give me a little bit more slack and let me kind of bring things up a little bit looser. So this install, this little side signal light that I did, I'll be doing a video on at a later time. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, all in all, the harness is pretty easy to install. This part under the fender is a little bit tricky. Just getting in there, it's a little fiddly. Installing the other side is exactly the same as this side. And that's pretty much all there is to it. This being the end of a DIY dad video, though, I do owe you a dad joke. So what do you call a candle inside of a suit of armor? A nightlight. All right, have a great day. We'll see you on the next one. Remember, the most important part of any DIY project is just to do it. Most people won't see the flaws unless you point them out to them, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Take care. We'll catch you next time.